So there's been something that I've been asking for years from Terry Stotts on the defensive end, and it sounds like I'm finally going to get my wish. I've been super critical of Terry Stotts in regards to one specific thing defensively, and it sounds like it's going to be fixed this year, and I think the team is going to be a lot better for it. This offseason has been great, not only from a Neil Olshey standpoint in terms of some of the players that he brought into the team, but also because it sounds like this might be Stotts' best coaching year yet, at least in my opinion. Now, I've been very critical of Terry Stotts in the past. A lot of people know me as the Stotts hater, but I don't hate Stotts. Stotts seems like a great guy. I just hate some of the coaching decisions that he's made in the past. Now, I know a lot of people have differing opinions on Terry Stotts' coaching decisions than me, and that's completely fine. But based on this quote, it sounds like I'm not going to have much of a problem with how he coaches the defense, because this is exactly what I've been asking for. Now, this quote from Terry Stotts was in a Jason Quick article on The Athletic. Now, this is not an ad whatsoever, but I feel like I have to give The Athletic a shout out. Their content is behind a paywall, so normally I don't really quote it all that much. You know, it is just kind of weird. So I feel like if I'm going to talk about a Terry Stotts quote from an Athletic article, is to give them a shout out. Their content is only $5 a month. And for whatever you think about him, Jason Quick probably has the most insightful content out of any Blazers media member. I genuinely enjoy reading his stuff. And you can get some interesting and insightful information by reading a Jason Quick article, just like this one. So definitely go and consider dropping that $5. I found it to be worth it. I just feel like it's the right thing to do if I'm going to bring up a quote that is from one of their articles. Now, Terry Stotts talked about his defensive philosophy in previous years and then some changes that he's going to make this year. Now, I have always had an issue with Terry Stotts only running one defensive scheme. Part of it was the scheme he's running. I'm not a big fan of drop scheme, but part of it is just the fact that he never changed it up. Opposing offenses knew what they were going to see defensively from the Portland Trail Blazers going into a game, and throughout a game, it seemed like opposing offenses got better at exploiting our singular defensive scheme just because they had so many reps against it during that game. I feel like that's a big reason why the Blazers blew a lot of 10 to 20 point leads, is because opposing offenses would struggle a little bit early on, but then pick up our defense, get used to our defense in the flow of the game, and then start exploiting it. So I had a big issue with the fact that we only ran one defensive scheme, and I also wasn't a fan of drop scheme. But today, Terry Stotts was quoted as saying this: "The idea is that we will have multiple coverages. We'll switch, show, blitz, drop, be up, but our primary coverage will be more aggressive than it has in the past." And this is maybe my favorite thing that Terry Stotts has ever said, because this is exactly what I've been asking for years. I've wanted us to switch up our defensive scheme for multiple reasons. One, it keeps the opposing offense off balance. They don't know what they're going to see game in, game out. Coming into a game, opposing offenses don't necessarily know what scheme we'd run for them. Now, they could game plan against our primary coverage, which sounds like it's going to be different than it has in the past. It used to be a drop scheme where we drop the big off of the pick and roll. Now, based off the preseason and based off Stotts' comments, we're going to have the big coming up and helping with the pick. So defenses can game plan for that, but since we'll also be doing a bunch of different things, if they start to figure it out, we can throw a different look at them and they will have to adjust accordingly, and it will keep them off balance. Instead of knowing exactly what defense they're going to see coming off the pick and roll, they won't know what coverage will be thrown at them, so they will have to make different reads all game long, and that'll probably lead to more mistakes from pick and roll ball handlers, and it'll make our pick and roll defense better. I also like being more aggressive because I want to get out and run a little bit more. We have better pieces to run the floor, and a more aggressive pick and roll defense will allow us to possibly force more turnovers and get out and run, and should hopefully lead to some Derrick Jones Jr. highlight dunks at least. It's also good to run multiple schemes because different pick and roll schemes work better against different players. You don't want to drop the big off the pick and roll against a guy like Steph Curry because that'll give him space to pull up from three. Dame kills drop coverage. We saw it against the Dallas Mavericks in the bubble where they continuously dropped the big and Dame dropped 61 on their heads. So dropping the big against certain players is not ideal whatsoever. However, against some players you can get away with it, and it might actually be the best scheme. While drop scheme isn't my favorite defensive scheme, it still might be the best call in certain situations. Those situations will depend on the personnel on the other team as well as the personnel that we have in the game, because guys like Yusuf Nurkic and Harry Giles I think look great playing up on screens, hedging, and playing that way defensively. A guy like Enes Kanter is probably better dropping off the pick and roll, so what scheme we should run is dependent on not only the other team's personnel, but the personnel we have in the game and what they do best. It also makes sense if we're behind in the second half to play more aggressive defensively to hopefully get some runouts and some quick buckets to quickly make up that deficit. So running different defensive schemes based on the situation is something that I've always wanted and we've never really done, but it sounds like Stotts is going to improve that this year, and I am very happy about that. During this preseason, we've seen a lot of hedging from the big man on the pick and roll, so I was already encouraged that we were going to change things up. But even though I like hedging the big more than dropping the big on pick and rolls, I didn't want it to be something where we constantly hedged the big and never did anything else. As I said, we should be constantly adapting to the situation and switching up our schemes to keep the opposing offense off balance. So this is a major win in my book. Now, I've gotten criticism in the past for being a little too hard on Stotts, but I think Stotts could have done this type of stuff in the past, and it might have made our defense a little bit better last season. We weren't going to be an above average defense or anything last year, but we could have been a little bit better than 28th in my opinion if we adapted to situations better and if we changed up our defensive schemes. There was no excuse, given how bad our defense was running the drop scheme, to not try some other things. And occasionally we would. It really only came against the Houston Rockets, but our defense against the Rockets looked good during those games. It looked better than when we dropped the big. So I had some serious questions about why we didn't switch things up more often. Stotts said it was hard to adapt and hard to change his defensive principles, but I have to credit him with finally adapting to a more modern defensive mindset, which is having defensive versatility in terms of the different schemes you throw out against the offense. Now, what some people would call a Stotts hater, in my mind, would just constantly bash Stotts, not give him credit, and probably find ways to complain about this quote. But why would I criticize Stotts for doing exactly what I want him to do? This is exactly what I wanted, so I'm not going to be hard on Stotts on the defensive end if this is what he's doing. I will have pretty much no complaints because this is exactly what I wanted. I am super encouraged by this quote, by the fact that it seems like there's a little bit more pressure on Stotts this year given the roster that Neil Olshey gave him, and the fact that he seems willing to adapt and improve as a coach. So I think this will be Stotts' best coaching year during his entire tenure as the Portland Trail Blazers head coach. I'm extremely excited to see what this season brings us because we got the roster and it seems like we might actually have the coach. Now, there's still some question marks on the offensive end that I think need to be answered in terms of moving the ball more, moving players more, and not being quite so stagnant. But as far as the defense goes, if this is what happens, I will be happy with the coaching job on that side of the ball. So anyway, let me know what you think about Stotts' comments. Let me know what you think about running multiple defensive schemes and how it could potentially help or maybe hurt the Portland Trail Blazers. I think there's no way it hurts the team, but if you think so, let me know why down in the comment section below. I like reading your comments, no matter if they agree with me or disagree with me. Just as long as they're respectful, I can respect it. So anyway, that's a wrap for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys are as excited for the upcoming season as I am. The season starts in just about a week. Can't wait. We'll have the post-game stream after the preseason game tomorrow over on Blazers Uprise Live. Hope you can tune in. And until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.